I set out to become the ultimate Jiu-Jitsu black belt. After taking on Z and Jeff, both incredible wrestlers, we move on to face the final challenges here at Next Edge Academy. Before I get crushed by the black belt, I have to complete one more challenge, a lightning fast purple belt named Paul. Paul and I are already off to an aggressive start. He's busy hunting for a wrestle up and I'm trying to make sure I don't get highlighted on compared to the previous roles here at Next Edge. I quickly shift his hips into head quarters, shutting down his ability to wrestle up. Then I duck down into a knee cut. I'm using my forehead to post on his shoulder, blocking any Kimura threats while also trying to blind him from the cane with my hair. I start to move deeper on the pass and weave my hand into a crossface, but as soon as I do that, Paul finds an underhook and throws me over his head, looking to execute on a wrestle up. I'm able to push him back down and Paul entangles me into De La Hiva. I escape by circling my foot out of his hook, and then he'll use my slight off balance to finally come up on the single leg. However, I use my big blue belt muscles to push him down and he returns to guard. I immediately swing back onto the offense with another knee cut and miss another underhook. To make up for it, I have my elbow closed off onto my ribs, leaving no space for Paul to reverse the underhook back onto me. This hand is also simultaneously waiting for Paul to turtle into me, and I can use it to attack a darce. As I continue to press forward, Paul turtles, but does a good job at creating space in the turtle and rolls himself into deep half guard. Knowing my attack is screwed, I sit back as to not let Paul come up into a strong passing position and cut my losses into open guard. At least that's what I plan to do. A simple misjudgment landed me into a deep shithole as Paul locks onto a tight body lock. Now I have to work extra hard to escape the body lock by using all my strength to push on his shoulders and move him off my hips. This will allow me to free my legs and get back into a guard. As soon as I'm free, I find myself in one of my strongest attacking positions in Jiu-Jitsu, seated up half guard. I first win head position, then after a strenuous thrust on my hips, I land my sunsetter triangle and put Paul into a very dangerous position. Unfortunately, because Paul had a decent grasp on my torso, I wasn't able to get the full rotation needed to capture his shoulder, and I'm left having to fight a tough battle of manipulating his right elbow to go over my chest. He's adding to that difficulty by posturing his shoulder and head to create a strong wedge between my knees. I'll play a reverse triangle by moving the lock from his shoulder to above his head, which should allow me to create more pressure than the standard triangle while Paul is using that defense tactic. In order to create enough pressure on the submission, I need to bring his near side leg to my shoulder. However, Paul is doing a good job at dropping his weight and blocking off that option. Realizing that I'm shit out of luck trying to attack with a reverse triangle, I switch back to the standard and try to bring his arm over once more. To defend it, Paul kinda just sits here and waits for my blue belt smooth brain to give him an opening. He finds what he needs as I start to fatigue my legs and loosen it up just enough for him to posture up and get his arm back into the lock. I start to set him up into it again, but Paul learns quickly and doesn't allow me to win the head position battle. After delaying me for a few seconds, he quickly snaps onto a front headlock and returns the submission attack. Except Paul isn't going to whiff the opportunity like I did and pours on heavy pressure to finish me with a guillotine. Very quickly before we face our last opponent, Paul lets me know that I should have finished him in the triangle when I had the chance, and not even a minute after the guillotine, he catches me in a quick heel hook to conclude the round. Now after a variety of submissions and exchanges between myself and the students at Next Edge, we move on to the final round of the day. The gym leader I'll be facing is the black belt Bruce Hoyer. Also, before we begin, go check out my Instagram because a simple task like that could reward you with an easy $100 store credit to YJJS brand. Check the description for more information. Staring down this mountain, I can't decide whether I should stand back up and run the risk of getting tossed on my head or stay down here and wait to get crushed. The decision gets made for me as Bruce starts his way down, locking his hands out on my waist. Notice how he quickly controlled my right leg to negate the triangle attack that I've been hunting for all day. With the pass getting closer and closer, I immediately throw out my whole offensive game and commit everything to defense. I can't allow Bruce to get past my feet or else I'm a goner. Bruce relieves the pressure a bit and moves to my center line. In my head, I'm doing a good job defensively as he's still at a distance where I can defend, but I soon realized what he was doing a little too late as I find my back flat on the mat, and before I can readjust myself, he stuffs down my hooks and drops into a body lock. This is exactly the position I was afraid of. Bruce is nearly past my guard and the only thing that comes after that will be an inhumane amount of pressure. However, as he starts making his way over my knee, I find an opening and swing my leg right into a triangle. Now in my deadliest submission attack, Bruce succumbs to my technique and gets submitted by a triangle. At least that's what happened in my head right before he abruptly postured out of the submission and begins to drown me in black belt rage. I'm sure you've already noticed the size difference between us, and using that, you should be able to guess my next move. When you find yourself under an opponent this much larger than you, your options are limited. The only thing left for you to do is, well, survive. Bruce isn't going to make that a cakewalk, however. After toiling with me in side control, he hops over into mount and looks for a rear naked choke with my back being exposed. However, I'm able to stall through it, and Bruce returns to sitting back on top of me. To even try and escape, I begin by capturing his leg between mine, but I quickly have to return to defending after Bruce tries to cross-face me. It's very important that I keep his chest and forearm off my face so I can have any shred of mobility from this position. Bruce eventually works his hand under my chin, but ultimately targets my wrist and pins it to the mat. This puts me under a threat, so I turn towards that side to protect my arm, but that's exactly what he wanted as he locks me into a gift wrap and chair sits on my back. I hop over his bottom hook and avoid my back being taken, only for Bruce to move to an even worse position as he sits on my back, completely flattening me on the mat. He starts punching in a rear naked choke, but my only goal now is to not get submitted, content with the fact that there's probably no way out of this. Luckily, I'm able to turn my chest upward and escape back control, but Bruce reduces my hopes as he exposes my back yet again, this time not allowing me to hop off his hook and chair sits onto my back. Now being cradled like a child, Bruce looks to finish things off by first controlling me using a gift wrap system, but he then grabs a 2-on-1 on my right arm, stringing it behind his head. Many of you know what comes next, but for those that don't, he'll gable grip around my neck, and with my spine crying for freedom, I tap to a submission called the Twister. With limited time, I try to hit one last highlight before we wrap things up. I'll step into headquarters, and as Bruce tries to off-balance me, I sit on my weight and get his back flat on the mat. I then launch it on my signature pass, the blast cut. However, it's shut down as Bruce frames on my hip and creates a ton of space between our chest. I'll try to chain into a different pass using a similar style from earlier in the trip at the cellar. As the knee cut fails, I cut my opponent's head and turn my underhook hand into a wedge on their hip line. However, pay close attention to how Bruce controls my right side elbow, preventing me from grabbing his head. But since I've already committed my weight forward, I stumble right into his trap. Bruce follows that up with a super tight side control, and he'll start to set up a terribly painful submission. He'll wrap my right arm around my neck and pull it tight towards the ground, doubling up on that by stripping his arm all the way up my elbow and crumples me like paper. He then controls my right knee from being able to pivot away, and with the pieces set in stone, he slaps me with the pressure of Mother Earth, sending my soul through the mat. Maybe I could have survived this, but with an existing elbow injury at the time, I choose life and live to fight another day. As bad as I want to try and do something other than getting crushed for 5 minutes straight, the bell saves me from another embarrassing tap, and we finish the final round of the day. So that concludes our time at Next Edge. It was an awesome and humbling experience to say the least. Going into the next video, I'll be taking on my favorite gym of the trip, Trap House Jiu-Jitsu in Missoula, Minnesota. Also, of course, don't forget to check the description and head over to my Instagram to try to win free jiu-jitsu gear from my sponsor YJJS. There's only about 10 days left, so don't miss your chance. Lastly, if you guys want to watch the raw rolling footage or the other rolls that I did here at Next Edge, head to my second channel, Carsahh BJJ Rolls, for more jiu-jitsu content.